Speaking of parties in power, while Biden is casting Trump and many of his supporters as common enemies, Trump continues to lead the 2024 GOP presidential field. Here he is up by 40 points in late August against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who's considered his biggest threat so far. But Trump is currently caught up in a number of ongoing legal problems. You know all about them, from his role in January 6th to the FBI raid at his Mar-a-Lago residence. And some of his fellow Republicans who've been waiting in the wings to explore their chances at a possible presidential run see Trump chaos as a possible opening. DeSantis, who's stepped into the role of Trump light, and Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, who's notably distanced himself from Trump and the MAGA crowd as a whole, are charting their paths toward a potential White House bid in 2024. Those paths are different, however. We thought these maps from our friends at Axios were striking. Here are the states that Youngkin, the mainstream establishment candidate, has been campaigning in recently. The thought being, if he helps elect Republican governors and senators in blue states, it will help send a message to the party that it's time to move beyond the extremist wing. DeSantis, meanwhile, has leaned into some of the party's most controversial nominees, campaigning for 7 Senate or gubernatorial candidates this year, 6 of whom are endorsed by the former President Donald Trump. So joining me now is Salena Zito, national political reporter for the Washington Examiner. Great to see you, Salena. First off, these 2 major Trump alternatives, Ron DeSantis in Florida, Glenn Youngkin, who's really a newbie or rookie governor in Virginia, taking such wildly different strategies and really represent, in a way, the identity crisis or the battle within the Republican Party that has been going on for the last few years, which is really that sort of the MAGA wing that President Biden attacked last night versus the so-called mainstream establishment that's been on the wane, the Mitch McConnell wing, over the past several years. So what's going on? Can you explain it to us? And which strategy do you think in 2 years, if not in the midterms coming up in 2 months, is going to be more successful?
Well, thanks for having me on. I think that in American politics, you don't win by getting a wing, but you win by coalitions. And I think that both Glenn Youngkin and Ron DeSantis have done a very good job in their home states of forming coalitions behind their successful wins and appealing to them and holding on to them. Glenn Youngkin was able to bring those suburban voters back to the Republican Party in Virginia. They were there in 2016. They moved away in 2020. They came right back with his election in 2021. Ron DeSantis has been very successful with the Hispanic voter. And that is also part of the new part of bringing into the Republican Party. I think what we will find is that both approaches are going to be successful, and it will probably happen with a ticket that has elements of both.
Right. And we're still 2 years away, but you can expect to heat up earlier than usual the presidential race. So let's talk a little bit more about DeSantis. He hasn't shied away from some of Donald Trump's more controversial statements. He attacked at Dr. Anthony Fauci. We announced recently he'd be leaving the White House. In fact, he took a very Trump tone, going after his height, even on a personal level, even though he's less than 2 inches taller than Fauci. So let's take a listen to that.
And I'm just sick of seeing him. I know he says he's going to retire. Someone needs to grab that little elf and chuck him across the Potomac.
Okay, so is this part of the DeSantis approach to winning over the MAGA base? Because, I mean, look, he sounded a little bit like Donald Trump there.
He did. However, I saw him in Youngstown and in Pittsburgh 10 days ago. And while he didn't take on that sort of the mean part, right? That was a side of DeSantis that we haven't seen before. And it'll be interesting to see if he employs that, it continues to, or if that was just a one-off.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I mean, DeSantis and Youngkin, they're angling, positioning themselves in case President Trump either doesn't run or somehow his supporters, there's a crack in his coalition, a crack in his support, giving them an opening. Do they have an opening here? Why do you think so, or why do you think not? And what is Trump's biggest vulnerability within the Republican Party right now?
Trump's biggest vulnerability within the Republican Party is the fact that voters in general tend to look forward. They don't tend to look in the rearview mirror. That doesn't mean they don't like him anymore. That doesn't mean that they didn't like what he did. That doesn't mean that they liked what he did and they didn't like his comportment. There's sort of all those sentiments that are part of the conservative populist coalition. I think his biggest challenge is that voters tend to be aspirational, right? They look forward. I think both Youngkin and DeSantis bring fresh elements to the conservative populist movement.
Yeah.
And I both, either with the Hispanic vote or with the suburban vote. And by the way, both of them did well with the other too, right? DeSantis did well with suburban voters. Youngkin did very well with Hispanic voters.
Yeah.
So I think both of them have great strengths.
Okay, so ahead of the midterms, Republicans are trying to refocus on the economy, and these are the issues that voters say they care about: the economy, crime, bread and butter Republican issues heading into the midterms. It plays well for them. Look at this polling out this week. This should be a huge advantage for Republicans. How do they return the chatter from President Trump, who refuses to leave the limelight, and all the noise and sort of the circus atmosphere around him, to the economy, to crime, to some of these kitchen table issues that would probably be winners for them, as opposed to refighting the 2020 election?
So I remember covering the Youngkin race, the Youngkin-McAuliffe race in December in last year in Virginia. And it's very similar to this moment. All that my profession talked about was Trump. All that the Democrats talked about was Trump. But when you listened to voters, that's not what they talked about. And they gave you hints. I just had a piece I did that without asking voters how they were going to vote, but asking them what they were going to vote on, voters tell you where their vote is going without having to reveal their hand, right? And the economy, crime is huge, education is huge, but also fentanyl. I think that's an underreported issue. I also see rising. I have a story about it this week. The student loan forgiveness that the president just launched, that is not playing well with voters across the board, in particular voters that either didn't go to college or paid for their own college education.
Right. You mentioned fentanyl. That ties in with another big issue for a lot of voters, and that's the southern border. Salena, great discussion. Want to recommend the article you wrote about that race in Colorado, that Senate race where the Republican is giving Michael Bennet, the incumbent, a real big fight for his money. Thanks a lot, Salena.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.